As the night deepened, a figure clad in green stood atop the mountain peak. His handsome face was twisted with malice, and an indescribable aura of eerie malevolence continuously radiated from his body, as if even the surrounding space had grown colder in response. That familiar face naturally belonged to none other than Lin Langtian, whose grudges with Lin Dong ran deep and complicated. Judging from his appearance, it seemed that after being gravely injured by Lin Dong the last time, this guy had still managed to claw his way back from the brink of death. "You're one tough bastard to kill." Murderous intent filled Lin Dong's eyes. Throughout the years, while many had stirred his desire to kill, none had ever surpassed the level of hatred he harbored for Lin Langtian. He understood well that between the two of them, only one would survive. And if the one left standing was Lin Langtian, given his nature, not only would Lin Dong's own life be in danger, but his father and everyone else in the Great Yin dynasty would undoubtedly face deadly consequences. That was why Lin Dong knew. This man must not be allowed to live. To ensure his family could continue their peaceful life in the Great Yin dynasty, this scourge had to be eliminated. The surge of icy killing intent radiating from Lin Dong immediately caught the attention of those around him. One after another, their gazes followed his, eventually resting on the distant figure in green standing on the mountain peak. Judging from their reactions, it seemed yet another enemy had emerged to challenge Lin Dong and his companions. "There's something off about this guy's aura," little Mink, who had appeared beside Lin Dong, stared intently at the distant figure, his brows furrowing. "Yeah." Lin Dong nodded in agreement, having sensed the same. Lin Langtian's aura was far more bizarre and potent than it had been before. In fact, Lin Dong now detected a strange and dangerous undertone to Lin Langtian's presence, one that even he found unsettling. What on earth happened to him? Lin Dong muttered to himself, his brows slightly furrowed. Although Lin Langtian had grown more strange, Lin Dong wasn't afraid. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to leave little Yan's side at this moment, he might have already made a move to test Lin Langtian's strength. As Lin Dong observed him from afar, Lin Langtian's sinister gaze remained locked onto him. Strangely, despite the malice in his eyes, Lin Langtian made no move to attack. Instead, he let his gaze sweep over both Lin Dong and little Mink, a glint of caution flickering deep within his eyes. "Lin Dong, I'll be waiting for you at the 100 Dynasties Mountain. There, we'll settle everything between us, once and for all." To Lin Dong's surprise, Lin Langtian suddenly flashed a cold smile. Without another word, he retreated into the distance, clearly not intending to strike tonight. Lin Langtian seemed to understand that Lin Dong was no longer the lone wolf he once was. He had gathered a formidable group of allies around him. Despite the changes in Lin Langtian, it was clear that he couldn't deal with Lin Dong alone. After weighing his options, he had no choice but to withdraw, albeit reluctantly. Still, he was certain that during the upcoming battle at the 100 Dynasties Mountain, he'd have a chance to face Lin Dong one-on-one. When that time came, he would show Lin Dong that in the end, only he, Lin Langtian, would emerge victorious. This guy, Lin Dong's gaze turned cold as he watched Lin Langtian retreat. He wasn't afraid of the man coming at him directly. In fact, he would have preferred it. He could have ended this trouble tonight, once and for all. This time, he wouldn't allow Lin Langtian the slightest chance of survival. There's something about his aura. It carries traces of the essence spirit that was once inside him, little Mink remarked quietly, his violet-black eyes gleaming with insight. "What do you mean?" Lin Dong asked, confused. "I think it's likely that Lin Langtian is no longer just the Lin Langtian you once knew," little Mink said thoughtfully. "The injuries you inflicted on him last time were severe. Anyone else would have died long ago. Yet here he is, not only alive but even stronger than before. From what I've sensed, if my guess is correct, the essence spirit that was once inside him has somehow merged with Lin Langtian's own mind." "Merged? Are you saying the essence spirit has taken over Lin Langtian's body?" Lin Dong's eyes flashed with understanding. Possessing a body isn't that simple. As long as Lin Langtian's mind remains intact, even an essence spirit can't take over his body easily. But if Lin Langtian allows it, doesn't resist, then the essence spirit could slowly corrode his mind and eventually devour him. At that point, what emerges won't be purely Lin Langtian or the essence spirit, but a fusion of the two. This new being would have the memories, and perhaps even the personality of both of them. Little Mink stroked his chin, glancing at Lin Dong. It seems Lin Langtian really hates you. To kill you, he's willing to go to such extremes, even if it means losing control of his own body. What a troublesome guy. Lin Dong pursed his lips. No wonder Lin Langtian seems so strange now. To gain power, he had chosen this self-destructive and extreme method. But judging by the familiar malice in his eyes earlier, even after merging, he would still see Lin Dong as his mortal enemy. In general, such a fusion comes with significant drawbacks. In the future, the best he could hope for is to reach the peak of the Nirvana stage. Stepping into the life and death mysterious stage? That would be out of the question, Little Mink sighed. He had once been in a similar situation as a mere demon spirit, so he understood the weakness and helplessness that came with such a state. If it weren't for Lin Dong helping him acquire the life and death reincarnation pill, perhaps he would still be trapped in his former form today. Next time you encounter this guy, be extra careful. He's no longer just Lin Langtian. If you strike, you'll be up against both him and that essence spirit working together, Little Mink warned. Understood. Lin Dong nodded, his gaze turning cold. The climax of the 100 Dynasties battle was fast approaching. He had to completely eliminate this threat before the battle concluded. If Lin Langtian were to catch the eye of one of the super sects, Lin Dong would lose his best chance. And if Lin Langtian entered a super sect, the Lin family in Yin City would never hold a secure position in the clan. So, the next time they met, he had to settle their grudge once and for all. Under the night sky, the crowd watched as Lin Langtian, who had displayed significant strength, suddenly retreated. Many showed a flash of disappointment in their eyes, clearly hoping for some chaos so they could fish in troubled waters. Boom, boom. Suddenly, on the distant mountain peak, a violent surge of primordial energy erupted, sweeping across the area. The intense heat dispelled the coolness of the night, and many felt the energy within them stir restlessly. They hurriedly backed away, not daring to stay too close. That guy seems to be successfully overcoming his tribulation. Some people's eyes flickered with a mix of awe and envy as they gazed toward the mountain peak. Having personally experienced the Nirvana tribulation themselves, they recognized this final outburst. Judging by the power of this tribulation, they could tell that Little Yin was undergoing his fourth Nirvana tribulation. Once he succeeded, Lin Dong's group would grow even stronger, making it harder for anyone to target them. While the crowd grappled with this realization, a crimson pillar of light suddenly shot into the sky from the mountain peak, its dazzling brilliance tearing through the darkness for miles around. Roar! As the light soared upward, a thunderous tiger's roar reverberated through the mountains, carrying with it an overwhelming pressure that spread in all directions. The sheer power contained within that roar caused many faces to pale with shock. He did it. A look of joy spread across Lin Dong's face. He knew that Little Yin had successfully passed the fourth Nirvana tribulation. They had survived a perilous night. Let's go. Not far away, Xiao Shan felt the surge of energy and his expression darkened. Without daring to linger, he gritted his teeth and quickly retreated. He knew that with Little Yan's successful tribulation, Lin Dong's side now had another formidable fighter. Staying any longer would be pointless. As for tonight's heavy losses, Xiao Shan would have to find another way to recover. But it was clear that the great Luo dynasty alone could no longer contend with Lin Dong and his group. These people from the so-called lesser dynasties had now become a force to be reckoned with, strong enough that even a super dynasty like his had to avoid them. But this was not the end. The true showdown would take place at the 100 Dynasties Mountain during the real 100 Dynasties battle. For now, no one could say for certain who would come out on top. Even Lin Dong's group, the dark horses shining so brightly, could still face unexpected defeat in the battles ahead. On the mountain peak, the crimson pillar of light gradually faded. Moments later, it completely disappeared into the night sky. The light had all been absorbed back into Little Yan's towering body. Beneath his skin, a deep golden light faintly pulsed, a sign of the immense power now coursing through him, far stronger than before. Little Yan's tightly closed eyes snapped open, and a sharp golden gleam shot out like a physical force, making it impossible for anyone to meet his gaze. Thud. The golden light gradually dimmed, returning to calm. Little Yin stood up, his massive frame exuding such an oppressive aura that even Imo Ling and the others nearby couldn't help but retreat several steps. They had seen 4 Nirvana stage experts before, but this was the first time they had encountered someone who, upon just stepping into the 4th Nirvana stage, wielded such an overwhelming presence. Did he succeed? On the mountain peak, the only ones unaffected by Little Yan's pressure were Lin Dong, Little Mink, and Su Ro. They immediately turned their gazes toward him. Yeah. Little Yin grinned at Lin Dong, a barely concealed excitement shining in his eyes. He could feel the immense power surging through him like a raging dragon. If he were to face Ming Lai from the Wind and Cloud Dynasty now, he could utterly crush him in less than 5 moves. It wouldn't be nearly as difficult as their last encounter. We didn't have an easy time tonight because of your tribulation, Little Mink drawled lazily. Little Yin chuckled sheepishly, then raised his head, looking toward the night sky. In an instant, the once dull expression on his face became ferocious, like a fearsome, awakened beast. An immense black aura surged from his body, transforming into a colossal shadow of a tiger that filled the sky with oppressive, murderous intent. All around them, the dynasties and strong warriors who were still watching felt their expressions change drastically. They could sense the formidable energy contained within that murderous aura. In an instant, their faces twisted in shock. The strength Little Yin now possessed could easily rival some of the peak experts of the 4th Nirvana stage. Another terrifying fighter. Many people cursed under their breath. Lin Dong and Little Mink had already shaken them into submission, and now with this newly empowered Little Yin, who would dare provoke such a lineup? Under the night sky, those who had initially entertained thoughts of taking advantage of the situation had now completely abandoned their ideas. They exchanged glances and then quietly turned and left, one after another. Lin Dong watched the quickly dispersing crowd and chuckled. These people had the desire but not the courage to act, so there was no need to fear them. Let's go. Dawn is approaching. We should pick up the pace and head to the 100 Dynasties Mountain as soon as possible. Since Little Yin had successfully overcome his tribulation, there was no need to stay any longer. Lin Dong glanced at the sky, waved his hand, and gave the command. By now, nearly every dynasty and expert in this core region was racing toward the 100 Dynasties Mountain. Lin Dong knew that there, he would witness the true elites from the countless dynasties of the Eastern Mystery region. On the path they had taken, their accomplishments were significant, but on other routes, there were undoubtedly other exceptional talents emerging as well. Ultimately, these geniuses and prodigies, who had risen through numerous challenges, would all converge at the 100 Dynasties Mountain to compete for supremacy. The battles there were sure to ignite one's blood and passion. A year of arduous training would finally culminate in that decisive moment. To soar like a dragon or crawl like an insect, the outcome would soon be determined. In this core region, news spread incredibly fast. Not long after the Great Luo dynasty had been decisively dealt with by Lin Dong's group during the night, the news spread like wildfire. The revelation naturally caused a significant stir. The Great Luo dynasty was widely known for its strength. Even among the super dynasties, it wasn't considered weak. Yet despite this, they had suffered a devastating defeat at the hands of Lin Dong's group. This forced some of the super dynasties, who had been eyeing Lin Dong's team, to reconsider their intentions. As the news spread, it left many people in awe. No one knew exactly when it had happened, but the fame of Lin Dong's group had been steadily growing. Now, it was clear to many that they would surely have a dazzling presence in this year's 100 Dynasties battle. In previous years, it was nearly impossible for contestants from mid- or lower-level dynasties to secure a place on the Nirvana Gold ranking. That ranking was traditionally dominated by the super dynasties. But this year, would something different happen? Lin Dong's group continued their journey without any further interruptions. By noon the next day, they finally stopped, landing atop a towering ancient tree. They cast their heated gazes toward the sight ahead. Before them stretched a vast, basin-like wilderness forest that seemed to have no end in sight. An intense and oppressive aura of malevolence emanated from within the forest. At the center of the wilderness stood a majestic mountain. Its peak was flat, as if it had been cleaved by a giant hand. The mountain soared thousands of feet high, standing out in the wilderness. And faintly, from the top of the peak, a unique, powerful energy ripple could be sensed. "This is the 100 Dynasties Mountain?" Lin Dong muttered to himself, his eyes filled with growing excitement as he stared at the mountain that pierced the sky. Beside him, Ling, Su Kuei, and the others were equally excited. After a year of grueling training and competition, they had finally reached the last stage of their journey. "Haha, we've finally made it to the 100 Dynasties Mountain." From the skies above the wilderness, countless figures were also flying toward the mountain. Like Lin Dong's group, they landed on treetops or hovered in the air, their eyes filled with excitement. Some couldn't contain their emotions and burst into laughter. To make it here, they had fought against others, fought against the heavens, and fought against themselves, pushing their potential to the limit, all for the chance to stand at this place. More and more figures converged from all directions, and soon the skies above the wilderness forest were filled with a cacophony of voices. "What do we do next?" Lin Dong asked, his eyes fixed on the distant mountain peak. "Everyone who makes it here will enter the 100 Dynasties forest for the final battle. Only those who qualify to enter the Nirvana Gold ranking can ascend the 100 Dynasties mountain." Upon hearing this answer, Lin Dong's eyes narrowed. He was about to speak when he suddenly sensed something and quickly turned. The voice had not come from anyone in his group. He looked toward a nearby ancient tree, where a figure stood with the wind blowing through their clothes. The figure wore a light blue robe, their face as pale as snow, with delicate features, a high-bridged nose, and crescent-shaped eyebrows. Though dressed as a man, the figure's soft femininity and classic beauty revealed her true gender. The blue-robed woman, who had disguised herself as a man, stood there with bright, curious eyes, watching Lin Dong and his group with great interest. "Thank you for the information." Lin Dong smiled politely and cupped his hands, but inwardly, his guard went up. He could sense that this woman was no ordinary person. "You must be Lin Dong. I've heard of you. I didn't expect even the great Luo dynasty would fall to your group. Hee, it's been many years since someone like you has appeared from a lesser dynasty," the blue-robed woman said with a gentle smile, seemingly unaware of Lin Dong's caution. "I'm Lan Ying, from the Immortal Dynasty." The woman extended her snow-white hand toward Lin Dong with a clear, captivating smile. However, the moment her words fell, Lin Dong noticed a look of shock flash across Su Kuei's face beside him. Lin Dong didn't ask Su Kuei for clarification because, in the next moment, his own pupils contracted sharply. On the woman's snow-white hand, he saw a nirvana seal glowing with a violet gold hue. That was the symbol of someone who had entered the Nirvana Gold ranking. A violet gold nirvana seal. The violet gold nirvana seal is a unique mark that only those who have entered the Nirvana Gold ranking can possess. This was Lin Dong's first time seeing a true violet gold nirvana seal, and what astonished him the most was that its owner was such a beautiful woman. Lin Dong's emotions stirred for a while before he forcefully suppressed them. He extended his hand and lightly touched Lan Ying's soft, cold palm. The sensation was almost intoxicating, but Lin Dong quickly let go. Lin Dong, from the Great Yin Dynasty. He didn't indulge in the moment because he knew that this woman was likely the strongest individual he had encountered among the dynasties since arriving at the ancient battlefield. Until he could determine whether she was an ally or an enemy, a certain level of vigilance was necessary. Lan Ying smiled sweetly at Lin Dong, her sharp instincts picking up on his slight reaction when he noticed the violet gold nirvana seal on her palm. She also sensed his wariness and caution toward her. "I've heard about you for a while, but I didn't expect we'd meet here." Lan Ying had a sharp chin, which made her look even more beautiful when she smiled. Her bright eyes swept over Little Mink, Little Yin, and Su Ro, who stood behind Lin Dong. Little Mink maintained his usual casual demeanor, his handsome face naturally drawing people's attention. Lan Ying's gaze lingered on him for a moment, and her slender fingers clenched slightly. From him, she could sense a faint, but undeniable aura of danger. Her eyes then shifted to the towering little Yin, whose frame resembled that of a giant, and finally to Su Ro, who stood shyly behind Lin Dong. She bit her red lips lightly before turning her gaze back to Lin Dong and said meaningfully, "Your strength certainly lives up to your reputation. You flatter us, Miss Lan. There are many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in this core region. Before long, we might find ourselves targeted, with others trying to snatch our nirvana seals." Lin Dong smiled in response. He could tell that Lan Ying had already discerned much about their capabilities. "That's entirely possible," Lan Ying said with a soft laugh, unexpectedly agreeing with Lin Dong's assessment without any sign of mockery. As she spoke, she watched Lin Dong carefully, as if expecting him to grow angry at her words. However, to her slight surprise, Lin Dong's expression remained calm, and there wasn't the slightest ripple of irritation in his eyes. He simply kept smiling. In a place full of hidden dangers and unpredictable forces, no one knows what might happen next, Lin Dong said with a light laugh. "Indeed, no one can say for sure. But I do know that a particular trouble is heading your way," Lan Ying said with a teasing smile. "Oh." Lin Dong raised an eyebrow. If Lan Ying considered it a trouble, it had to be something serious. The Heavenly Demon Dynasty, one of the top 10 super dynasties, and the successor of the Taodai sect, the leader of the 4 major demon sects, Lan Ying smiled. Beside him, Su Kuei's face changed dramatically once more. In the Eastern Mystery region, dynasties were as numerous as stars, and they were ranked by strength. Among them, the super dynasties were the undisputed overlords. And within the super dynasties, 10 stood above all others. They were known as the top 10 super dynasties of the Eastern Mystery region. The Heavenly Demon Dynasty was one of them, and so was Lan Ying's Immortal Dynasty. They were the true elites of the ancient battlefield. From the moment they entered this realm, they had stood at the forefront, looking down on the others. "That does sound troublesome," Lin Dong nodded slightly. He was well aware of the existence of the top 10 super dynasties, but he hadn't known that the successor of the Taodai sect was among them. This meant that the strength of the Heavenly Demon Dynasty far surpassed that of the Great Luo Dynasty. If they decided to come after him, it would undoubtedly be a brutal fight. Lan Ying watched Lin Dong's calm expression, her lips curving slightly in curiosity. She was intrigued by the source of his composure, especially since even she found the Heavenly Demon Dynasty's successor to be a formidable opponent. As Lin Dong and Lan Ying conversed, more and more people began to gather in the area, and the once quiet surroundings quickly became noisy and chaotic. Buzz. At that moment, a humming sound suddenly came from the sky. Countless people looked up and saw a beam of light shoot out from the center of the forest, heading toward the 100 Dynasties mountain. The light condensed into a figure who appeared high in the sky. The figure stood atop a massive sword, dressed in the robes of a sect, his eagle-like eyes scanning the crowd with intense authority. A powerful and oppressive energy radiated from him, instantly silencing the previously boisterous crowd. Everyone gazed at the figure with awe. Judging by his robes, they knew that this was someone from the super sects they revered like gods. After a year of arduous training, you've made it this far, which speaks to your abilities. But the selection process for super sects is extremely strict. Only the most outstanding individuals will be chosen. Hovering in midair, the sword-wielding figure looked down on the crowd, his voice booming like thunder, echoing in everyone's ears. To ascend the 100 Dynasties mountain, there is only one condition. You must transform your Nirvana seal into a violet gold seal. Only then will your year of hard work lead to the most perfect result. Violet gold Nirvana seal. Many of the surrounding experts wore complex expressions. They knew all too well what the violet gold Nirvana seal represented. It was the symbol of a Nirvana gold ranking expert. To evolve their Nirvana seal to that level, while so many others sought to claim it was no easy feat. We don't care what methods you use or how you achieve it. We only care about the results. As long as you can acquire a violet gold Nirvana seal, you will catch the eye of a super sect. Lin Dong couldn't help but sigh inwardly. This person was clearly trying to drive everyone to the brink of madness. Once they entered the wilderness forest, the upcoming battles would be brutal and merciless. Compared to the number of contestants, Those who can obtain a violet gold Nirvana seal will be very few. Such a selection process seems excessively harsh. Is this type of bloodletting even useful for the super sects? Lin Dong muttered quietly. Those who manage to obtain the violet gold Nirvana seal will be treated as core disciples in the super sects, considered direct disciples. Meanwhile, the super sect members will also observe the battles in the forest. Those who perform well will still be chosen, but they'll only enter as registered disciples. Naturally, their status won't compare to the former group. Lan Ying was the one who answered Lin Dong's question. She glanced at the sword-wielding man in the sky with a look of indifference, showing she wasn't particularly in awe. Clearly, she had seen much in her time. With your talents, Miss Lan, I'm sure the super sects have already reserved a place for you, right? Lin Dong said with a smile. The Immortal Dynasty is directly linked to the Nine Heavens Taiching Palace, so naturally, I will be entering. However, if one lacks talent, no matter how good the connection, it's still difficult to be accepted, Lan Ying replied with a light laugh. Nine Heavens Taiching Palace? Lin Dong was taken aback. He recalled that back in the Great Yin Dynasty's Great Desolate Province, he had encountered an old man in simple clothes who claimed to be from the Nine Heavens Taiching Palace. Looking back now, it seemed the old man had exaggerated his status. With his strength below the one Yuan Nirvana stage, he would be considered quite ordinary within the Nine Heavens Taiching Palace, and the idea of him taking Lin Dong in was obviously impossible. Lan Ying, assuming Lin Dong was hearing about these super sects for the first time, didn't dwell on it. She smiled as she glanced back at the man in the sky, still putting on a show of authority, and said, "There are 7 super sects in the Eastern Mystery region. Of course, there are other sects as well, but they're not as powerful as the 7. Oh? Which of the 7 is the strongest?" Lin Dong asked curiously. This was the first time he had heard such detailed information about the high and mighty super sects. The leader of the 7 super sects would be Yuan Gate. Lan Ying's red lips curved slightly, and her eyes showed a trace of complexity. Yuan Gate, Lin Dong murmured, hearing the unfamiliar name that exuded an air of grandeur. He nodded slightly, but didn't notice the subtle shift in Little Mink's expression. The super sects of the Eastern Mystery region are far from peaceful. There's fierce competition among them. If you end up in a sect that has a feud with the Nine Heavens Taiching Palace, we might just cross paths as rivals, Lan Ying said playfully. Lin Dong chuckled awkwardly, but gathered some useful information from her words. It seemed even the super sects weren't entirely unified. No matter where one went in the world, conflicts were inevitable. As Lin Dong continued to gather information from Lan Ying about the super sects, the authoritative voice of the man in the sky finally finished its speech. He gazed down at the crowd below, their eyes burning with a bloodthirsty fervor, and then smiled in satisfaction. With a sharp wave of his hand, he declared, "Since everyone is ready, I now announce that the 100 Dynasties battle officially begins." Boom. It was as if the entire world trembled at that moment. In the sky, the sound of wind breaking rang out wildly, and countless figures shot forward toward the final battleground below. "I'll head off first, Lin Dong. I hope to see you on the 100 Dynasties mountain. It's not often that someone from a lesser dynasty makes it this far, so don't disappoint me," Lan Ying said with a smile, turning her head toward Lin Dong. Her graceful figure blurred into several afterimages before disappearing into the distance. What incredible speed! As expected from someone who has made it onto the Nirvana Gold ranking, Lin Dong sighed, watching Lan Ying's ghostly movements. Those who entered the Nirvana Gold ranking were indeed a cut above the rest. Let's go. Head straight for the 100 Dynasties mountain. The explosive atmosphere in the surrounding sky sent waves of excitement through Lin Dong's eyes. In the next moment, he waved his hand, and like a great eagle, he shot forward into the forest. Little Mink and the others followed closely behind. The final battleground had arrived. Lin Dong and his group dashed into the wilderness forest, where the dense tree canopy cast ominous shadows. The world around them seemed to be tinged with a faint, bloody hue. This forest had buried countless geniuses from dynasties across the land, and after today, the ground here might become even darker with blood. As Lin Dong and his group entered the forest, They could already sense the fierce battles erupting around them. Everyone who had made it here had sacrificed so much to reach this point, and none of them were willing to be stopped at the final step. Even if they couldn't make it onto the Nirvana Gold ranking, they had to give it their all, for this was their last chance. What should we do? Su Kuei asked, his eyes scanning the surroundings. The oppressive atmosphere made him visibly tense, and he didn't dare make any rash decisions, so he turned to Lin Dong for guidance. Head straight for the base of the 100 Dynasties mountain. The ones who make it that far are the true elites, and their Nirvana seals will be worth taking, Lin Dong said quietly. Rather than fighting for Nirvana seals in the outer areas, it would be far more efficient to lie in wait at the base of the mountain. While those who made it there would be formidable, it would save them plenty of trouble. Whoosh! Just as Lin Dong finished speaking, his brow furrowed slightly. He looked up, sensing several powerful figures approaching rapidly from the distance. We've been targeted already? Mo Ling muttered, his expression darkening as he too sensed the approaching presence. The group immediately began circulating their primordial energy in preparation for battle. The sound of rushing wind quickly approached, and in moments, several figures emerged from both sides of the forest, eventually appearing in the open space in front of Lin Dong and his group. When these figures appeared, a look of surprise flickered across Lin Dong's face. He recognized these people. They were familiar faces. Haha, Lin Dong, my friend. It's been half a year. How have you been? On the left, at the forefront of a group, a handsome young man dressed in white cupped his hands and laughed heartily. It was none other than Lu Bai, who, like Lin Dong, had obtained one of the 4 grand profound sect inheritances. Beside Lu Bai were several other powerful individuals, including a striking woman in a vibrant red dress, her figure elegant and alluring, Mu Hongling, another acquaintance of Lin Dong. Standing next to Mu Hongling was a burly man with a square face and thick eyebrows that exuded a certain authority, clearly not an ordinary person. On the right side of the clearing stood a smaller group, though their auras were just as formidable. Leading them was Yin Sun, dressed in black. The inheritors of the 4 grand profound sects had all gathered here. As Lin Dong glanced over at Lu Bai and the others, they, too, were observing him. Their eyes carried a sense of amazement. When they first met Lin Dong, he hadn't been someone they paid much attention to. But now, even these proud and lofty individuals had to admit that Lin Dong's strength and the group he led had already surpassed them. At the very least, they knew that if they had faced the great Luo dynasty, they wouldn't have come out unscathed like Lin Dong and his team had. These people are powerful, said the square-faced man standing next to Mu Hongling, his gaze serious. Mu Hongling nodded lightly, biting her red lips. Her beautiful eyes carried a complicated look as they focused on Lin Dong. Back when they first met, Lin Dong hadn't even reached the half-step Nirvana stage. Yet now, he had become the most likely dark horse to break into the Nirvana Gold ranking. We wouldn't come knocking without a reason. Surely you don't think we've come for your Nirvana seals? Lin Dong said with a faint smile, showing no signs of being fazed by the sudden arrival of the 2 powerful factions. With his current strength, even the so-called top 10 super dynasties no longer held the same level of threat to him. You jest, Lin Dong. At this point, there aren't many who would dare make a move against you, Lu Bai chuckled, then paused before continuing. We've come to discuss a potential collaboration. Collaboration? Lin Dong raised an eyebrow. You've already faced the great Luo dynasty, so you're probably aware of the Disha Alliance and the inheritors of the 4 major demon sects, right? Lu Bai asked. Yes, Lin Dong nodded. The inheritors of the 4 major demon sects, one of them, the great Luo dynasty, has been dealt with by you. However, 3 other powerful dynasties are still waiting for us. Among them, the successor of the Taodai sect is backed by the Heavenly Demon Dynasty, one of the top 10 super dynasties. Their strength is overwhelming. According to the intelligence we've gathered, these 3 dynasties have already set up a massive ambush, waiting for us. If we want to reach the 100 Dynasties mountain, we'll have to break through their blockade. At this point, Lu Bai smiled bitterly and said, We've already clashed with the Bloodseal Dynasty and the Bone Jade Dynasty, and it ended in a stalemate. However, the Heavenly Demon Dynasty is far too powerful. If they join forces, we won't stand a chance of breaking through. Seeing the bitter smile on Lu Bai's face, Lin Dong's brow furrowed. 3 powerful dynasties joining forces, one of which was backed by a top 10 super dynasty. Such a formidable lineup would be difficult for even them to overcome alone. The Disha Alliance and the Tiangang Alliance have always been fierce rivals, and in their pursuit of inheritance, they won't let us go easily. None of us will be able to avoid this battle, Yin Sin added in a low voice. How strong is the Heavenly Demon Dynasty? Lin Dong asked. Very strong. The Heavenly Demon Dynasty is renowned for its 3 demons. The eldest, Song Zhen, the second, Song Ke, and the third, Song Ba. All of them are experts who have reached the 5th Nirvana stage. Moreover, they command a number of other formidable fighters, Lu Bai replied, his tone filled with deep apprehension. Even though the Heavenly Demon Dynasty was also a super dynasty, its strength was far beyond what they could compare to. 3 5th Nirvana stage experts. Upon hearing this, Mo Ling and the others behind Lin Dong couldn't help but turn pale. Was this the terrifying power of one of the top 10 super dynasties? It's definitely a tricky situation. Lin Dong's expression grew more serious. This was probably the most formidable dynasty he had encountered since entering the ancient battlefield. 3 5th Nirvana stage experts, more than enough to crush Lu Bai and his companions. No wonder they didn't dare venture deeper on their own and had come looking for his help. You want us to take on the Heavenly Demon Dynasty? Little Mink asked with a half-smile. I know it's asking a lot, but right now, you're probably the only ones capable of standing up to them, Lu Bai said with a wry smile, clearly feeling somewhat embarrassed. After all, in this proposed alliance, Lin Dong and his group would be facing the most difficult enemy. We're all in the same boat now, Lin Dong, Yin Sin said in a low voice. If the Heavenly Demon Dynasty takes us down, you'll be surrounded on all sides as well. We have no choice. Everyone knows by now that the Heavenly Demon Dynasty has set up an ambush deep in the 100 Dynasties forest, and even the super sect members on the 100 Dynasties mountain might be watching. Unless we withdraw from the battle altogether, we have no choice but to fight. Yin Sun continued. Lin Dong's brows furrowed, but he didn't immediately respond. If they won this battle, they would likely be able to ascend the 100 Dynasties mountain directly. However, if they lost, a year of hard work would all be for nothing. As Lin Dong fell silent, Lu Bai, Yin San, and the others also stopped speaking, but their hearts were pounding in their chests. Lin Dong was their last hope. With their current strength, they couldn't possibly contend with the Heavenly Demon Dynasty. The only ones capable of doing so were Lin Dong's group, whose reputation was now nearing that of the top 10 super dynasties. Mu Hongling's slender hands tightened slightly as the tense atmosphere made it difficult for her to breathe. She could sense the anxiety in those around her. They were all waiting for Lin Dong's answer, for he was now their final savior. Her beautiful eyes gazed at Lin Dong, filled with complicated emotions. Who would have thought that the young man who had once been so helpless in her presence had, in less than half a year, grown so powerful that their fates now rested in his hands? The tense silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity before it was finally broken by Lin Dong's long exhale. He lifted his gaze to the anxious faces of Lu Bai and the others and spoke softly. You can handle the Bloodseal Dynasty and Bone Jade Dynasty, right? As long as the Heavenly Demon Dynasty doesn't interfere, we can take care of those 2 dynasties. Lu Bai and Yin Sin replied, a flash of excitement appearing in their eyes. In that case, Lin Dong's lips curved into a wild smile. We'll take care of the Heavenly Demon Dynasty. Mu Hongling bit her red lips, her beautiful eyes fixed on the young man whose face now bore a fiery expression. A strange blush spread across her alluring cheeks. In that moment, Lin Dong's magnetism surpassed that of any man she had ever encountered. She didn't know how this battle would end, but she knew one thing for sure. In the upcoming battle, this man would become the most dazzling figure in the 100 Dynasties forest.